People think the first $10,000 is built in the stock market. They think it begins with the right investment, the right strategy, or the right moment to buy. It does not. For most working people, the first $10,000 is built much earlier than that. It is built in the painful gap between what you earn, what life takes from you, and what you are somehow still able to keep. You know exactly how this feels. You get paid on Friday morning, and for a brief moment, your account finally looks healthy. You tell yourself that maybe this will be the month you get ahead. Maybe this will be the month you keep more of what you earned. But then the withdrawals begin. Rent hits first, then the credit card minimum, then the car payment, the gas, the groceries, the insurance, and all the small expenses that never feel small when your margin is thin. By Monday morning, the number on your screen is back to $50 or $100 or some other number so fragile that one ordinary inconvenience can destroy the rest of your week. That is why your first $10,000 feels impossible. Not because you are lazy, not because you are unintelligent, and not because you need another motivational speech from someone who has never had to calculate whether they can afford to get sick for 3 days. It feels impossible because most working people are trapped inside a financial structure that quietly drains them before they ever have the chance to build real safety. In this video, I am going to show you the 3 specific traps that make the first $10,000 so hard to save. Then I am going to show you what has to change if you want to finally build your first real financial buffer. Because your first $10,000 is not the money that makes you rich. It is the money that stops your life from feeling one emergency away from collapse. Let us begin with the first trap. Before we go into the first trap, we need to answer one important question. Why does this first $10,000 matter so much? Why not $5,000? Why not $50,000? Because your first $10,000 is not really about becoming rich. It is about becoming harder to break. It is the first real layer of distance between you and panic. When you have no savings, life becomes aggressive. A flat tire is not just a flat tire. A medical bill is not just a bill. A broken phone, a missed week of work, or an insurance increase can throw your entire month into chaos. Every inconvenience arrives with the same question attached to it. How am I supposed to pay for this? That is what people with financial margin often forget. They think savings is just a number sitting in an account. They think it is a milestone or a symbol of discipline or money that is doing nothing. They are wrong. Your first $10,000 is not idle money. It is protection. It is negotiating power. It is emotional stability. A person with zero savings and a person with $10,000 may look almost the same from the outside. They may drive a similar car, live in a similar apartment, and wear similar clothes. But internally, they are living in 2 completely different realities. One person hears bad news and immediately feels fear. The other person still feels stress, but not immediate collapse. That difference changes the quality of every decision you make. When you are constantly afraid, you choose emergency. You delay repairs. You accept bad work conditions. You stay in unhealthy situations longer than you should. You say yes when you want to say no simply because you cannot afford instability. But once you build your first real financial buffer, something changes. You do not become wealthy overnight, but you stop reacting to every problem from a place of desperation. You gain a little time, you gain a little calm, and those 2 things quietly improve the quality of your decisions. This is why the first $10,000 matters more than most people think. It does not first change your lifestyle. It first changes your relationship with fear. It gives your life a small amount of shock absorption. It gives you room to think before reacting. So if this number has felt painfully far away, understand what you are really trying to build. You are not just trying to save money. You are trying to build the first line of defense between yourself and chaos. And the first reason that line of defense is so difficult to build is the trap most people live in every single month without even realizing it. The first trap is what I call the survival break-even trap. This is the point where your income is just high enough to keep you functioning, but not high enough to make you safer. You are not really building a life. You are spending your energy every month just to remain financially alive. From the outside, this can look normal. You have a job, you pay your bills, you show up every week. You are doing what responsible adults are supposed to do. But underneath that surface, the math is brutal. Your entire financial structure is balanced on the edge. There is no real margin. There is no room for error. There is no real distance between a normal month and a bad month. That is why the first $10,000 feels impossible for so many working people. They are trying to save from a position that is already unstable. They are trying to build a safety net while standing in the middle of the fall. That is a very different task from simply being more disciplined. Make it real. Imagine you spend 3 straight months being extremely careful. You cut back on eating out. You buy cheaper groceries. You delay anything unnecessary. At the end of those 3 months, you finally manage to save $800 for the first time in a while. You feel a small sense of relief. Then life does what life always does. Your car needs 4 new tires. Your insurance premium goes up. You miss a few days of work because you get sick, or your child gets sick, or something in your apartment breaks and suddenly needs attention. In one ordinary week, 90 days of discipline can disappear. You are not back at zero because you were reckless. You are back at zero because you were fragile. That is the real trap. When your financial life is fragile, small problems become expensive problems. A minor inconvenience turns into a major setback because you do not have enough stored margin to absorb the hit. The problem is not just that emergencies happen. The problem is that your system is built in a way that gives every emergency the power to reset your progress. And then people make the mistake of blaming themselves. They say, I just need to try harder. I need to be stricter. Maybe I am just bad with money. But in many cases, that is not the deepest problem. The deeper problem is that your current income and your current fixed costs are already too close together. The gap is too thin. So even when you do everything right, life still has enough force to push you backward. This is also why small raises often do not solve anything. A 5% raise can feel meaningful for a week. Then rent goes up, groceries go up, insurance goes up, and the pressure returns. You think you made progress, but the system around you quietly absorbed it. That is what makes this trap so demoralizing. You can work harder, earn a little more, and still not feel safer. You can become more responsible, more disciplined, and more careful, and still feel like you are standing in the same place. If your entire paycheck is already assigned to survival, then your first problem is not investing. Your first problem is that your life has no room to breathe. That is why escaping this trap usually begins with one of 2 shifts. Either you reduce a major fixed burden, or you increase your earning power enough to create real distance between income and survival. Sometimes it is housing. Sometimes it is transportation. Sometimes it is debt. Sometimes it is a better paying role, a better skill, or a second stream of income. The details change, but the principle is always the same. You must widen the gap, because until that gap becomes real, your first $10,000 will always feel like it is disappearing before it even has a chance to exist. And even when some people finally do create a small gap, many of them still lose the money anyway, not because life took it this time, but because pressure, image, and emotion persuaded them to hand it back. That is the second trap. The second trap is more subtle, but for many people it is just as destructive. It is the trap of pressure spending. Some people would call it ego spending, image spending, or lifestyle inflation. But underneath all of those labels, the pattern is the same. Money leaves your life not only because you are underpaid, but because stress, identity, and emotional exhaustion keep persuading you to hand it away. This is where many financial conversations become shallow and useless. People point at coffee, food delivery, clothing, or a newer phone and act as if the entire problem is stupidity. That is not serious analysis. Most people are not spending this way because they are evil, reckless, or incapable of thought. They are spending this way because modern life creates constant pressure to look stable, feel rewarded, and avoid discomfort even when the money is not really there. Think about how this works in real life. A person making $3,000 a month finances a $1,200 phone because they use it every day and do not want to feel left behind. Someone else keeps a car payment that is too high because the car feels like proof that they are doing okay. Someone exhausted after work spends money on takeout, delivery, or small convenience purchases because those tiny comforts are the only things in the week that feel immediate and controllable. One purchase by itself is usually not the problem. The real damage comes from repetition. It comes from turning relief into a habit. It comes from building a life where every stressful week quietly demands a financial reward. A meal here, a subscription there, a new purchase justified by a hard month, a weekend cost that feels small in the moment but repeats all year. That is how capital disappears before it ever has a chance to become protection. And the deeper problem is psychological. When people feel behind, they often spend to protect identity. They want to look normal. They want to feel respectable. They want proof that they are not losing. So instead of allowing their life to look temporarily modest, they keep paying for appearances that do not actually improve their security. That is why some people stay broke while looking almost successful from the outside. This is not an argument for extreme deprivation. It is not a command to live like a machine and never enjoy anything. The real point is simpler. If your goal is to build your first $10,000, then some of the money leaving your life must stop being used to manage emotion, image, and stress. It must start being redirected into stability. That usually means accepting a difficult season. It means allowing your life to look a little less impressive while it becomes more real. It means saying no to purchases that mainly serve pride. It means understanding that the first $10,000 is often built during a period when your life feels less glamorous, not more glamorous. This is the part many people resist. They want the safety of savings and the appearance of success at the same time. Sometimes that works for higher earners. For everyone else, it is often a fantasy. If your income is still fragile, then every dollar spent protecting image is a dollar not spent protecting your future. And once you see that clearly, the question changes. It is no longer, what small luxury am I allowed to keep? The better question becomes, which expenses are quietly preventing me from building the first real layer of safety in my life? Because until you answer that honestly, the first $10,000 will keep getting delayed by purchases that feel harmless in the moment but expensive in the long run. But even if you cut back on pressure spending, there is still a third trap waiting for you. And this one is more dangerous than people realize, because it does not just affect your money, it affects your mind. The third trap is the most dangerous one, because it does not just drain your money, it drains your mental bandwidth. And once your bandwidth is gone, even good intentions stop being useful. This is the trap of cognitive exhaustion. People often imagine financial progress as a simple discipline problem. They think if you really cared, you would track every expense, cook every meal, read every contract carefully, cancel every bad subscription, negotiate every bill, and spend your evenings building a better future. That sounds reasonable in theory. In real life, exhausted people do not perform like that. When you wake up early, commute, work all day, deal with stress, deal with people, deal with uncertainty, and come home already depleted, your brain does not want one more difficult decision. It wants relief. It wants convenience. It wants something easy, immediate, and emotionally available. That is why tired people often make expensive decisions. Not because they are foolish, but because fatigue changes behavior. A person who had enough energy to cook on Sunday may order takeout on Thursday. A person who meant to compare insurance plans never gets around to it. A person who wanted to learn a better skill at night ends up lying on the couch scrolling because their mind has already been used up by the day. This is where poverty becomes more than a money problem. It becomes a bandwidth problem. It steals the exact mental capacity you would have needed to improve your situation. You spend your best hours earning just enough to survive, and by the time the evening arrives, the part of you that was supposed to plan your escape is already exhausted. That is why so many people stay stuck, even when they know what they should be doing. They know they should save more. They know they should learn more. They know they should cut certain expenses, ask for better pay, or build an additional stream of income. The problem is not always knowledge. Often the problem is that they are trying to do all of that with a tired brain and an overworked nervous system. And when that happens, money starts leaking in quieter ways. You forget to cancel things. You delay paperwork. You miss deadlines. You pay fees you could have avoided. You buy convenience because you have no energy left to buy wisely. None of these decisions feel dramatic on their own, but together they keep you financially weak. The deeper tragedy is that exhaustion also reduces imagination. When people are overwhelmed, they stop thinking strategically. They stop asking, what could make next year easier? They start asking, how do I survive this week? That is a completely different mental horizon. And if your horizon keeps shrinking to the next few days, your first $10,000 will always remain in the distance. This is why the third trap matters so much. If the first trap makes you fragile, and the second trap persuades you to spend for relief, the third trap makes it harder and harder to even build a way out. It weakens the exact part of the mind that creates leverage, structure, and long-term change. So what do you do with that reality? First, you stop moralizing it. Stop treating exhaustion as proof that you are lazy. It is often proof that your current life is demanding too much while giving too little back. Second, you reduce the number of decisions your financial life requires from you. You simplify, you automate, you create defaults. A default savings transfer, a default grocery routine, a default bill system, a default weekly money check. So small problems do not quietly become expensive ones. The goal is not to become perfect. The goal is to build a life that does not require constant heroism just to stay stable. Because if your financial system only works when you are fully motivated, fully focused, and emotionally fresh, then it does not really work. Real systems must survive tired weeks, stressful months, and imperfect behavior. And once you understand that, you stop designing your life around your best day and start designing it around your real one. That shift matters because your first $10,000 is not built only by earning more or spending less. It is built by creating a life where fewer leaks depend on your mood, your energy, and your willpower. And once you do that, the path becomes clearer. Let us put aside the motivational speeches for a moment. Today, I am not going to teach you how to become a billionaire. I am going to talk about a much more terrifying reality. I am going to explain exactly why you are still broke despite working harder than anyone else you know. Most people think that being broke is just a temporary lack of cash. They think if they just get a 5% raise or work a few more hours of overtime, the pain will finally stop. They are completely wrong. Poverty is not a number in your bank account. It is a highly engineered mathematical trap. It is a closed-loop system designed to keep you inside, spinning your wheels until you simply run out of physical energy and die. You did everything society explicitly told you to do. You followed the exact blueprint they handed to you when you were a child. You went to school. You stayed out of trouble. You followed the rules, and you put your head down. You work 40, 50, or even 60 hours a week. You give the market the absolute best hours of your day. You give them your peak physical energy and your sharpest mental focus. You try your absolute best to be a responsible adult. You try to save a little bit of money from every paycheck. You skip the vacations. You buy the cheaper groceries. Yet at the end of every single month, when the math is finally calculated after the rent is paid, after the utility bills are paid, after the insurance and the taxes are deducted, you log into your banking application, you stare at the screen, and the balance is painfully, terrifyingly close to zero. You feel absolutely exhausted. You feel like you are running at maximum speed on a treadmill that keeps getting faster and faster. The incline is rising, your lungs are burning, and you are terrified because you know that if you simply twist your ankle, if you get sick for just 2 weeks, your entire financial life will completely collapse. When you feel this desperation, you naturally turn to the internet for answers. And what do you find? The financial media and the motivational speakers in the expensive suits point their fingers directly at you. A 22-year-old on social media standing in front of a rented sports car tells you that you are simply not grinding hard enough. They tell you that you need to wake up at 4 in the morning. They tell you that your poverty is the result of buying too many expensive coffees, or that you simply do not have the right positive mindset. They want you to internalize the blame. They want you to carry a deep, heavy, and toxic sense of personal shame. But today I am speaking directly to you, and I am here to completely remove that shame. I am here to tell you the brutal, unforgiving truth that the financial elites will never say out loud. You are not failing because you are lazy. You are not failing because you are unintelligent. You are failing because you are playing a financial game where the rules were meticulously designed, tested, and optimized to make you lose. You do not understand the physics of modern wealth. The modern economic machine does not thrive on the financial independence of the working class. It expands and survives entirely on your financial exhaustion. The system needs you to be just comfortable enough to keep showing up to work on Monday morning, but broke enough that you can never ever afford to walk away. You have been placed inside a highly sophisticated maze. This maze was engineered by people who deeply understand the mathematics of wealth, and it was built specifically to trap people who do not. If you are constantly stressing about money, if your credit card balances are growing while your income stays exactly the same, you must stop blaming your work ethic. Your work ethic is not the problem. Your poverty is not a moral failing. It is a fundamental misunderstanding of how capital actually operates in the real world. Today, we are going to completely strip away the illusions of the modern hustle culture. We are going to look at the global economy through the cold, emotionless eyes of a capital allocator. I am going to reveal the 3 absolute, undeniable reasons why you are still broke, despite working so incredibly hard. These are the invisible mechanisms that drain your wealth every single day. They are operating in the background of your life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are silent, they are highly efficient, and they are happening to you right now. If you do not understand these 3 concepts, you will remain an economic servant for the rest of your natural life. No amount of hard work will save you. But once you see the strings controlling the puppets, everything changes. Once you understand the cold mathematics of the system, you can finally begin to build your escape route. Let us begin with the very first and perhaps the most devastating trap of them all. The very first reason you remain economically trapped is a concept I call the biological time equation. From the moment you entered the education system as a young child, you were conditioned to accept a very simple, seemingly logical formula. You were taught that you must trade a specific amount of your physical time in exchange for a piece of currency. If you want to acquire more currency, you are told that you simply need to work more hours. This equation is the single most destructive financial lie ever told to the working class. It is the fundamental algorithm that keeps billions of people in poverty. Let us look at the cold, undeniable mathematics of this equation. As a human being, you possess a strict, inflexible biological limit. There are exactly 24 hours in a single day. You cannot borrow more time, you cannot print more time, and you cannot save today's time to use tomorrow. Out of those 24 hours, you must sleep for at least 8 of them just to repair your biological hardware. If you do not sleep, your body will simply shut down. You must spend another 3 to 4 hours commuting in traffic, buying groceries, cooking meals, and maintaining your basic physical existence. This leaves you with a finite, tightly restricted, and incredibly small window of time that you can actually sell to an employer. Because your inventory of time is strictly limited by the laws of physics, your potential income has a hard mathematical ceiling. It does not matter if you are flipping burgers for $15 an hour or if you are a corporate manager making $50 an hour, you are still trapped in the exact same mathematical cage. You are essentially renting out your physical existence to a corporation. If you stop showing up, if you get sick, or if you simply want to rest, the money immediately stops flowing. Furthermore, you must deeply understand how the global labor market actually views you. The market is not your family. The market is not your friend. The market is an emotionless, cold, calculating machine. It does not pay you based on how physically exhausted you are at the end of the day. It does not pay you based on your moral goodness. It does not pay you based on your loyalty to the company. And it certainly does not care how much you need the money to feed your children or pay your mortgage. The market pays you based on one metric, and one metric only. It pays you based on your replacement cost. It pays you based on how difficult you are to replace. If you are performing a task, whether it is physical manual labor, moving boxes in a warehouse, or typing numbers into a corporate spreadsheet, you must ask yourself a terrifying question. If the company fired you today, could they pull a random person off the street and train them to do your exact job in 30 days? If the answer is yes, then your true economic leverage is fundamentally zero. In the eyes of the system, you are a biological consumable. You are a highly replaceable, low-cost gear in a massive wealth-generating machine that is owned by someone else. If you break down, if you complain, or if you ask for too much money, the machine will not stop to help you. It will simply eject you and insert a cheaper, younger gear without a single second of hesitation. This brings us to a profound realization. True capital allocators, the individuals who actually build generational wealth, refuse to participate in the biological time equation. They never sell their physical time for money. Instead of selling their time, they build, acquire, and command leverage. Imagine 2 men standing in a massive field of dirt. The first man is handed a simple iron shovel. He is told to dig a trench. He works for 12 grueling hours under the burning sun. He swings the shovel thousands of times. His back aches, his hands are covered in bleeding blisters, and his muscles are completely exhausted. At the end of the day, he has moved 1 ton of dirt. He is paid $100. The second man refuses to touch the shovel. Instead, he spends an entire month in his room reading manuals on learning how to operate a massive, highly advanced mechanical excavator. When he finally arrives at the field, he climbs into an air-conditioned cabin. He sits in a comfortable chair, uses 2 fingers to gently pull a joystick, and the machine moves 100 tons of dirt in a single hour. He is paid $1,000, and he does not break a single drop of sweat. The economic machine does not care that the first man sweat more. The system does not care that his job was physically harder or that his hands were bleeding. The market only rewards the output and the immense leverage used to achieve it. If you are completely exhausted at the end of every single week, it is because you are still digging with a shovel. You are relying entirely on the raw, unscaled energy of your own physical body. Leverage is the only mechanism on earth that can separate your income from your physical presence. Leverage is a piece of software code that works for you while you are sleeping. Leverage is an automated business system. Leverage is a piece of digital media that can be viewed by 1 million people at the exact same time at zero marginal cost. If you have to be physically awake and present at a specific location to generate income, you are not a capital owner. You are an economic servant. Asking your boss for a 20% raise will never make you wealthy because you are still confined inside the biological trap. You must undergo a fundamental metamorphosis. You must transition from a laborer who sells time to an operator who commands leverage. But let us assume you are incredibly disciplined. Let us assume you work the extra hours, you suffer through the physical exhaustion, and you actually manage to save a portion of that hard-earned money. You put it in a savings account thinking you are finally getting ahead. This is exactly where the system springs its second most insidious trap. It is a silent, invisible mechanism designed to slowly drain whatever wealth you have managed to keep. And that brings us to the second undeniable reason you are still broke. The second undeniable reason you are still broke is a highly engineered economic phenomenon that I call the saver's punishment. From the moment you were handed your very first piggy bank as a child, society began programming you with a specific financial narrative. You were taught that saving cash is the ultimate financial virtue. You were told to work hard, spend less than you earn, and put the difference into a safe, secure bank account. You were promised that if you simply accumulated enough of these paper certificates, you would eventually reach financial freedom. This is not just bad advice, it is a mathematical death sentence for your wealth. To understand why saving money guarantees your poverty, you must first understand what modern money actually is. The cash in your wallet and the digits on your banking application are fiat currency. They are not backed by gold, they are not backed by silver, and they are not backed by any physical constraint of reality. They are entirely backed by the artificial trust placed in a central government. Because the currency is not tied to anything physical, the people who control the system have the absolute power to create an infinite amount of it out of thin air. Imagine you walk into a massive, beautiful bank building made of marble and glass. You walk up to the counter and you hand the teller $10,000. That money represents hundreds of hours of your biological time. It represents your sweat, your stress, and your sacrificed youth. The bank takes your life energy, locks it in a digital vault, and pays you a fraction of a percent in interest. You feel incredibly proud, you feel safe, you believe you are building a fortress for your family. But while you are sleeping, the system is actively attacking your fortress. Whenever a government needs to fund a massive deficit, whenever they need to bail out failing financial institutions, or whenever they want to stimulate an exhausted economy, they do not raise your income taxes. Raising physical taxes angers the public and causes political instability. Instead, they use a much more sophisticated weapon. They use the invisible tax of inflation. The central banks simply press a button on a computer and trillions of new dollars are instantly injected into the global economy. But you must understand a fundamental law of physics. Creating new currency does not create new wealth. It simply dilutes the purchasing power of every single dollar that already exists. When they print 1 trillion new dollars, they are legally and silently siphoning the value straight out of your marble bank account. Let us look at the brutal mathematics of this invisible robbery. Let us assume you worked incredibly hard for 5 years to save $50,000. You'll leave it perfectly untouched in your savings account. Over the next decade, the system engineers an inflation rate that averages 5 to 7% a year. 10 years later, you log into your account. The number on the screen still says $50,000. Your brain tricks you into thinking your wealth is perfectly intact. But when you go to the marketplace to buy a house, to buy groceries, or to pay for medical care, you suddenly realize a horrifying truth. The prices of everything around you have doubled. Your $50,000 now buys exactly half of what it could have bought 10 years ago. Nobody broke into your house, nobody hacked your bank account, yet 50% of your accumulated life energy was perfectly and legally stolen from you while you were trying to be a responsible citizen. This is why saving cash is fundamentally a trap. Cash is not a reliable store of value. Cash is a melting ice cube sitting in a warm room. If you hold on to it for too long, it will simply disappear into a puddle of nothingness. The financial elites, the billionaires, and the true capital allocators understand this invisible tax perfectly. This is why the wealthy do not hoard cash. They view cash as a radioactive liability. They view it as a temporary medium of exchange that must be immediately converted into something real. The moment a true capital allocator receives a large sum of currency, they instantly deploy it. They buy commercial real estate, they buy scarce commodities, they buy ownership stakes in profitable businesses, they buy productive farmland, they buy hard assets that the government cannot print on a computer. When a system prints trillions of dollars and causes massive inflation, the poor and the middle class are completely crushed because the cost of their survival becomes overwhelmingly expensive. But the wealthy actually celebrate, because as the value of the paper currency collapses, the numerical value of their hard assets explodes upward. Inflation is the exact mechanism that constantly transfers wealth from the bank accounts of the working class directly into the portfolios of the capital owners. If your entire financial strategy relies on stacking paper currency in a savings account, you are playing a game of financial suicide. You are voluntarily paying the invisible tax. But what happens when the working class realizes that their savings are being wiped out? What happens when you realize you cannot afford the life you were promised, but you still desperately want to look like you are succeeding?